Greetings. This is the first episode dealing with the Indiana Infantry regiments that served during the Civil War. The 6th Indiana Infantry, the soldiers that enlisted in this regiment, came from Madison, North Vernon, Orleans, Washington, Kokomo, Knightstown, Seymour, and other Indiana towns. This regiment's term of enlistment was for 3 months. It mustered in Indianapolis on April the 25th, 1861, with Colonel Thomas T. Crittenden in command. This regiment was part of President Lincoln's initial call-up of 75,000 men. The regiment left immediately for West Virginia to participate in the Civil War's first battle, the Battle of Philippi. It next participated in the conflict with Confederate General Garnett on July the 6th, 1861. The regiment returned to Indianapolis to muster out on August the 6th, 1861. The regiment suffered 267 casualties, 9 officers and 116 men killed in battle, and 140 men to disease. The regiment reorganized, and the 6th Indiana reorganized and mustered into service on September the 20th, 1861, under the command of Colonel Thomas C. Crittenden again. This regiment organized at Madison, Indiana, which is in Jefferson County. Recruits came from Ripley, Jennings, Bartholomew, Daviess, Henry, Bartholomew counties. Because of a rumor circulating that Confederate General John T. Morgan would invade Indiana, Colonel Crittenden requested assignment to Louisville, Kentucky to repel Morgan. The regiment, 500 strong, subsequently deployed to Louisville and became the first Northern regiment to be stationed in Kentucky. After deployment, the regiment moved to Muldrox Hill near Elizabethtown and later to Mullen Creek. At Mullen Creek, another 300 recruits from Madison joined it. Most of its service was in Tennessee and Georgia. Major engagements include the Battle of Shiloh, April the 6th through the 7th. During this battle, the regiment saved a key artillery battery from capture by the Confederates and led a charge that changed the tide of the battle. It also fought at the Siege of Corinth, the Battle of Chickamauga on September the 18th and 20th, 1863, Battle of Stones River, December the 31st through 1863. Note, the regiment faced annihilation at this battle, however managed to retreat, reorganize, and lead a key charge. The Battle of Tunnel Hill, Sherman's March to the Sea, it also participated in. In late 1864, most of the soldiers had reached the end of their enlistment and mustered out on September the 22nd, 1864. 19 soldiers whose enlistment had not run out were transferred to the 44th Indiana Infantry. During its service, the regiment suffered 267 casualties, including 9 officers and 116 men killed in action, and 140 died of disease and 48 by desertion. An historical marker in Shiloh, Tennessee, honors the service of the regiment during the battle. The 7th Indiana Regiment, or 7th Indiana Infantry Regiment, was a 3-month regiment. The men in this regiment enlisted came from Greensburg, Franklin, Lawrenceburg, Rising Sun, Indianapolis, Danville, and Shelbyville. The 7th Indiana organized in Indianapolis, Indiana, and mustered into service on April the 25th, 1861, with distinguished Mexican War veteran Colonel Ebenezer Dubont in command. This regiment formed part of the initial call-up for 75,000 soldiers issued by President Abraham Lincoln. The enlistment period for this one was also 3 months. After mustering into service, the regiment traveled through Ohio to fight at the Battle of Philippi in West Virginia. After participating in a number of skirmishes after this battle, the regiment returned to Indianapolis, where it mustered out of service on August the 2nd, 1863. During its service, the regiment suffered 3 casualties, 1 killed in action, and 2 to disease. The 7th Indiana Regiment immediately reorganized on August the 3rd, 1861. The regiment mustered back into service on September the 13th, 1861, with Colonel Ebenezer Dubont once more in command. Recruits from Claremont, Lawrenceburg, Milford joined the regiment. The regiment fought in Virginia for the greater part of the war. Major actions were the Battle of Winchester from March 22nd through the 23rd, 1862, Pope's campaign in northern Virginia, August the 6th through September the 2nd, 1862, the Second Battle of Bull Run, August the 30th, 1862, Battle of Fredericksburg, Virginia, December the 12th through the 15th, 1862. Battle of Gettysburg, July the 1st through the 3rd, 1863. The Siege of Petersburg, June the 16th through September the 20th, 1864. Non-veterans mustered out on September the 20th, 1864. The remainder of the regiment transferred to the 19th Indiana Infantry on September the 23rd, 1864. The 7th Regiment Indiana Infantry suffered 229 casualties, 8 officers and 109 men killed in action. 2 officers and 111 men died by disease. The 8th Indiana Infantry Regiment was also a 3-month regiment. It organized in Indianapolis with men from Wayne, Grant, Randolph, Delaware, Madison, Henry, Hancock, and Wabash counties. It mustered into service for 3 months on April the 23rd, 1861, with Colonel William F. Benton in command. The regiment traveled by rail to Clarksburg, Virginia, where it camped near a site reportedly occupied by Confederate troops. These troops had vacated the place, so the regiment marched to Rich Mountain, where it participated in the Battle of Rich Mountain on July the 11th, 1861. After the battle, the regiment went into Camp Beverly, Virginia, remaining there until July 24th, when it returned to Indianapolis to muster out on August the 6th, 1861. This regiment was part of the initial call-up issued by President Abraham Lincoln. The regiment suffered 23 casualties, 7 killed in battle, 1 missing in action, and 15 desertions. This regiment also, like the previous ones, organized immediately it reorganized on August the 6th, 1861. It mustered in for 3 years' service on September the 10th, 1861. The regiment operated mostly west of the Mississippi during the first years, then fought in Virginia and Georgia for the duration of the war. Major actions included Battle of Pea Ridge, March the 7th through the 8th, 1862, Siege of Vicksburg, May the 18th through July the 4th, 1863. The regiment took part in many more skirmishes and actions than are listed here. Most of the veterans re-enlisted in April 1864, after which they returned to Indianapolis on furlough. The regiment returned to service and traveled to Virginia, participated in the Shenandoah campaign, after which it traveled by steamboat to Georgia in January 1865. It remained there until it mustered out on August the 28th, 1865. During its service, the regiment suffered 245 killed in action, 75 desertions, and 47 missing in action. The 9th Indiana Infantry recruited mainly in northern Indiana. Cities listed as residences of recruits are listed as Logansport, Valparaiso, Elkhart, Rensselaer, South Bend, Delphi, Michigan City, and Delphi. I said it twice. Organized in LaPorte, Indiana, the regiment mustered into duty on September the 5th, 1861, after which it deployed to Cheat Mountain, West Virginia. The 9th Indiana Infantry operated mainly in West Virginia, Kentucky, Tennessee, Mississippi, and Georgia. Major actions included the Battle of Shiloh, Tennessee, April the 6th through the 7th, 1862, Battle of Perryville, Kentucky, October the 8th, Danville, October the 11th, 1862, Battle of Stones River, December the 30th and 31st, 1862, Battle of Chickamauga, September the 19th through the 20th of 1863, Siege of Atlanta from July the 22nd through August the 25th, 1864, and they served duty at San Antonio and New Brussels, Texas. The regiment mustered out of service on September the 28th, 1865. The regiment suffered 353 casualties, 11 officers and 120 enlisted men killed in action. 2 officers and 220 enlisted men died of disease. 10th Indiana Regiment, the 10th Regiment Indiana Infantry. Men that enlisted in this regiment came from Lafayette, Williamsport, Indianapolis, Frankfort, and other towns in central and northern Indiana. The regiment mustered into service on April the 22nd through the 25th, 1861, for 3 months. It then deployed to Evansville, Indiana. From Evansville, it traveled to West Virginia, where it participated in the Battle of Rich Mountain on July the 11th, 1861. The regiment returned to Indianapolis and mustered out on August the 2nd. This regiment suffered 6 casualties, 4 killed in action and 2 to disease. After reorganizing, the 10th Regiment Infantry mustered back into service for 3 years on September the 18th, 1861. Colonel Joseph J. Reynolds was commander. The regiment deployed to Louisville, Kentucky, and attached to the Army of the Ohio. During its service, the regiment fought mainly in Kentucky, Tennessee, and Georgia. Major actions included operations against General John T. Morgan, December the 22nd, 1862, through January the 2nd, 1863. It fought at the Battle of Chickamauga from September the 19th through the 21st, 1863, the Siege of Chattanooga, Tennessee, September the 24th through the 23rd, 1863, the Battle of Roscoca, May the 14th, 1864, Battle of Jonesboro, August the 31st and September the 1st, 1864. Some members of the regiment mustered out at Indianapolis on September the 19th, 1864. Others reenlisted and joined the 58th Regiment for Sherman's March to the Sea. The regiment suffered 186 casualties. 3 officers and 64 enlisted men died in action. 114 passed away from disease. The 11th Indiana Infantry, soldiers from this regiment came mainly from Marion County, Vigo County, Montgomery County, Boone County, and other counties in the state. This regiment mustered into action on August 31st, 1861, with Colonel Lew Wallace in command. It deployed to Paducah, Kentucky, arriving on September the 6th, 1861. The regiment did most of its fighting in Tennessee, Mississippi, Arkansas, Louisiana, and Virginia. Major actions included capture of Fort Donelson, Tennessee, February the 12th through the 16th, 1862, the Battle of Shiloh, April the 6th through the 7th, 1862, Battle of Port Gibson, May the 1st, 1863, the Siege of Vicksburg, Mississippi, from May the 18th through July the 4th, and assaults on Vicksburg, May the 19th and the 22nd of 1864. It participated in Sheridan's Shenandoah campaign, August the 6th through November the 8th, 1864. The regiment mustered out of service on July the 26th, 1865. The regiment suffered 288 casualties, 1 officer and 114 men killed in action, and 170 died of disease. The 12th Indiana Infantry, men from this regiment came from Vernon, Marion, Fort Wayne, New Albany, Corydon, Fortville, and other Indiana cities and towns. The regiment organized for 1 year service in Indianapolis using surplus regiments that had come to Indianapolis in answer to the initial call for 6 regiments. The 12th Indiana Infantry mustered into service on May the 11th, 1861, with Colonel John W. Wallace in command. The regiment deployed to Evansville, where it occupied a camp previously used by the 11th Indiana Infantry. From Evansville, it traveled to Baltimore, Maryland. During this phase of its existence, its actions included skirmishes near Williamsburg, Virginia, skirmish action near Winchester, Virginia. It returned to Indianapolis and mustered out of service on May the 14th, 1862. The regiment suffered 22 killed in action. The 12th Indiana Regiment Infantry mustered back into service on August 17, 1862, for 3 years of service under the command of Colonel William Link. The regiment deployed to Kentucky, where it took part in the Battle of Richmond, Kentucky, August 30th, 1862. The Confederates captured most of the regiment during this battle. However, they paroled them. The regiment returned to Indianapolis for reorganization. It then returned to Kentucky. Major actions included Siege of Vicksburg, June the 12th through July the 4th, 1863, Missionary Ridge, November the 25th, 1863, the Atlanta Campaign, May the 1st through September the 8th, 1864, Battle of Atlanta, July the 22nd, 1864, Siege of Atlanta, July the 22nd, 18 through August the 25th, 1864, and it fought at Bentonville, North Carolina, March 20th and 21st, 1865. The regiment took part in the surrender of Confederate General Johnson and his army, after which it marched to Washington, D.C. to take part in the Grand Review of the Armies on May the 23rd and 24th. The regiment mustered out of service on June the 8th, 1865. Veterans returned to Indianapolis. The draftees that with enlistment period still active transferred to the 48th and 59th Regiments. The regiment suffered 295 casualties, 8 officers and 92 enlisted men killed in action, 2 officers and 193 enlisted men died of disease. The 13th Indiana Infantry organized in Indianapolis. It was one of the first 4 Indiana regiments to volunteer for 3 years' service. Recruits from Brookville, Madison, Kokomo, Huntington, Versailles, Osgood, Columbus, as well as many other Indiana cities and towns enlisted in this regiment. It mustered into action on June the 19th, 1861, with Colonel Jeremiah C. Sullivan in command. It left Indiana on July the 4th. The regiment joined General George McClellan's forces at Rich Mountain, where on July the 10th it fought the Battle of Richmond on July the 11th in West Virginia. The regiment fought its way through Virginia, participating in the Battle of Cheat Mountain in September 1861, and pursued Confederate forces to Luray and Alexandria, Virginia. Most of the regiment's activity was in North Carolina and Virginia at the Battle of Deserted House, the Siege of Suffolk, after which it departed for Folly Island in Charleston, South Carolina, on July the 28th, 1863. It participated in the sieges of Forts Wagner and Gregg and was the first regiment to enter Fort Regiment during the September 7th, 1863 assault. After this operation, many of the regiment's soldiers re-enlisted as veterans, and the regiment went home from furlough. After furlough in Indiana, it moved to Jacksonville, Florida until April 17, 1864. It transferred its operations to Virginia, joining General Benjamin Franklin Butler around Richmond, Virginia. The regiment fought at the May the 6th and 7th Battle of Port Walthall Junction and the Battle of Chester Station on May the 10th. The regiment took heavy losses of about 200 dead and wounded men during its furious charge on enemy rifle pits during these actions. From there, it joined General Ulysses S. Grant's Army of the Potomac. It fought at the Battle of Cold Harbor and in the early assaults on Petersburg. The non-veterans departed the regiment at this point, but it continued on, fighting at the Battle of Strawberry Plains, Chaffin's Bluff, and Fort Gilmer. In October 1864, it took part in the attack on Richmond. On December the 5th, the regiment reorganized, adding 5 companies of draftees, which brought it up to full strength. It next took part in the assaults on Fort Fisher and Fort Anderson. When the war ended, the regiment stayed active as occupiers of Wilmington and Raleigh. The regiment mustered out on September the 5th. The original recruitment suffered loss by death, 136, desertion, 103, unaccounted for 25. After reorganization, the regiment lost by death 98 dead, 1 desertion, and 30 unaccounted for. The 14th Indiana Infantry Regiment that organized on July the 5th, 1861. The 14th Indiana Infantry Regiment reorganized at Camp Vigo in May in Terre Haute, 1861 for 1 year enlistment. Most of the men in this regiment came from Park, Martin, Knox, Putnam, and Vanderburgh counties. When the call went out for 3 year enlistments, the regiment was the first Indiana regiment to volunteer for that term. It departed Indiana for Clarksburg, West Virginia. This regiment earned the nickname Gallant 14th during its extensive service in the war. It was part of the so-called Gibraltar Brigade, so called for its tenacity in combat. The name referred to the Rock of Gibraltar, and the unit participated in battles at Antietam, Chancellorsville, and Gettysburg. After participating in several battles in 1861 and 1862, the 14th participated in the Battle of Antietam on September the 17th, 1862. During the battle, the regiment gained the nickname Gibraltar because it was the only regiment to not fall back during the battle. Thus, it was as strong as the Rock of Gibraltar. For 4 hours, they fought within 60 yards of enemy lines, taking 31 casualties and 150 wounded. During the December the 11th through the 15th Battle of Fredericksburg, it led the main attack, but could not dislodge the well-entrenched Confederates. At Gettysburg, a Confederate force had captured Weidrick's battery on Cemetery Hill and began spiking the cannon. The 14th Indiana led the assault to retake the battery. After the fierce hand-to-hand fighting, they succeeded. They drove the enemy back down the hill, capturing many of the officers, soldiers, and colors of the 21st North Carolina Infantry. The 11th would hold this position, protecting the battery for the duration of the battle. The next day, July the 3rd, Confederates launched a furious counterattack. However, the 14th held. The 14th now bore the brunt of the action at Grant's Wilderness Campaign. It also participated in the battles at Cold Harbor and Spotsylvania. The 14th mustered out on June the 20th, 1864, suffering 185 mortalities, 63 desertions, and 12 missing in action. Many of these soldiers then re-enlisted and joined the 20th Indiana Regiment. The 15th Indiana Infantry organized at Lafayette, Indiana, mustering into service for 1 year in May 1861. Recruits for this regiment came mainly from Fountain, St. Joseph, Allen, Benton, Montgomery, Putnam, LaPorte, Jasper, Union, and Tippecanoe counties. On June the 14th, 1861, the regiment reorganized and mustered in for 3 years of service, still in Lafayette. Soon after this regiment deployed to West Virginia under the command of Colonel George D. Wagner. It joined Union forces engaged with Confederates at the Battle of Rich Mountain. The majority of this regiment's service was in Virginia, Kentucky, and Tennessee. Major actions included the Battle of Cheat Mountain on September the 12th, 1861, Battle of Greenbrier River, October the 3rd and 4th, 1861, Battle of Shiloh, April the 6th through the 7th, 1862, Battle of Perryville, October the 8th, the Chickamauga Campaign, August the 17th through the 22nd, 1863. The regiment mustered out of service on June the 14th, 1864. A detachment joined the 17th Indiana Infantry. During its service, the regiment suffered 183 casualties, 103 killed in action, 76 by disease. The 16th Indiana Infantry, organized at Richmond, Indiana, it consisted of men from Shelby, Fayette, Wayne, Floyd, Rush, Ripley, Dearborn, Putnam, Lawrence, and other counties. The regiment mustered into service on May 1862 for 1 year service with Colonel Pleasant A. Hackelman in command. It was intended to remain in Indiana. However, the shocking loss of the Union Army at the First Battle of Bull Run prompted the regiment to request out-of-state service, which the Army accepted. The bulk of service for this regiment during the 1 year enlistment was in Virginia. Major engagements included no major it really didn't fight in any many major battles. It fought numerous skirmishes and campaigns. The regiment mustered out of service on May the 14th, 1862, after which it returned to Indianapolis. This regiment suffered 16 casualties, 1 killed in action, and 15 to disease. The regiment reorganized in Indianapolis and mustered back into service on August the 19th, 1862, under the command of Thomas J. Lucas. The regiment deployed to Louisville, Kentucky. The regiment operated mainly in Arkansas, Mississippi, and Louisiana. Major actions included Chickasaw Bluff, December the 29th, 1862, Battle of Champions Hill, May the 16th, 1863, Siege of Vicksburg, May the 18th through the July the 4th, 1863, the Red River Campaign, March the 10th through May 22nd, 1864, numerous expeditions and skirmishes in 1864. This regiment mustered out of service on June the 30th, 1865, with many of the soldiers transferring to the 13th Indiana Cavalry. The regiment suffered 297 casualties. 3 officers and 82 enlisted men died in action, and 212 died of disease. The 17th Indiana Infantry, organized at Camp Morton in Indianapolis, with recruits coming from Martin, Boone, Pike, Harrison, Crawford, Gibson, as well as many other counties across the southern area of the state. The regiment mustered into action on June the 12th, 1861, with Colonel Milo S. Haskell in command. It deployed to Parkersburg, West Virginia. Most of its service took place in Kentucky, Tennessee, Alabama, and Georgia. Major actions included Buell's campaign in northern Alabama and Middle Tennessee from June through August 1862, the siege of Munfordville, Kentucky, September the 16th through the 21st, 1862, the Chickamauga, Georgia campaign, August the 16th through September the 22nd, 1863, Atlanta, Georgia campaign, May the 1st through September the 8th, 1864, the siege of Atlanta, July 22nd through August the 25th, 1864. The regiment mustered out of duty on August the 8th, 1865. The regiment suffered 237 casualties. 3 officers and 90 enlisted men died in action. 143 died of disease. The 18th Indiana Infantry consists of men largely from Dearborn, Lawrence, Vermilion, Switzerland, Martin, Franklin, Washington, Monroe, Johnson, and Shelby counties. The 18th Indiana Infantry, organized in Indianapolis, mustered into action on August the 6th, 1861, with Colonel Thomas Pattison in command. The regiment deployed to St. Louis, Missouri. The regiment operated mainly in Missouri, Arkansas, Mississippi, Louisiana, and Virginia, and Georgia. Major actions included action at Shawnee Mound or Milford on the Blackwater and capture of 1,300 prisoners December the 18th, 1862. Battle of Champions Hill, May the 16th, 1862. The siege of Vicksburg, Mississippi, May the 18th through the July the 4th, 1863. Assaults on Vicksburg, May 18th and 19th, 1863. Furlough in Indiana, June through July of 1864. After that, it returned to Virginia and took part in Sheridan's Shenandoah Valley campaign from August to November of 1864. It fought at the Battle of Cedar Creek on October the 19th, 1864. This regiment mustered out of service on August the 28th, 1865. The 18th Indiana Infantry suffered 204 casualties, 5 officers and 68 killed in action, 130 to disease. The 19th Indiana Infantry, the majority of these recruits came from Delaware, Randolph, Marion, Elkhart, and Johnson counties. However, many came from many other locations. The regiment mustered into duty for 3 years' service on July the 20th, 1861, with Colonel Solomon Meredith in command. The regiment operated mostly in Virginia for the duration of its service. Major actions included Pope's campaign in northern Virginia, August the 6th through September the 2nd, 1862. Battle of Antietam, September the 16th through the 17th, 1862. Chancellorsville campaign, April the 27th through May the 6th, 1863. Battle of Chancellorsville, May the 2nd through the 5th, 1863. Battle of Gettysburg, July 1st through the 3rd, 1863. Battles of the Battle of the Wilderness, May the 5th through 6th and 7th, 1864. Siege of Petersburg, June the 6th through October the 18th, 1864. Non-veterans mustered out on July the 28th, 1864. The remainder consolidated with the 20th Indiana Infantry on October the 18th, 1864. The regiment suffered 316 casualties, 5 officers and 194 enlisted men killed in action, 1 officer and 116 to disease. The 20th Indiana Infantry. The 20th Indiana Infantry consisted of men largely from Miami, Lake, Marshall, Fountain, LaPorte, Cass, Tippecanoe, Marion, Porter, and White counties, as well as a few other places. The regiment organized in Lafayette and mustered into service on July the 22nd, 1861, under the command of Colonel William L. Brown. After mustering in, the regiment deployed to Baltimore, Maryland. The regiment operated in Virginia for the duration of the war. Major actions included they had action near the site of the ironclad ships Monitor and Merrimack on March the 8th and 9th, 1862. Battle of Oak Grove, June the 25th, 1862. Buell Run, August the 30th, 1862. Battle of Fredericksburg, December the 12th through the 15th, 1862. Battle of Gettysburg, July the 1st and through the 3rd, 1863. It had numerous skirmishes, raids, and other activity. It was in the Appomattox campaign from March 28th through April the 9th, 1865. It was there for the surrender of Lee and his army. It participated in the Grand Review at Washington, D.C. on May the 23rd, 1865. It mustered out of action on July the 12th, 1865. The 20th Indiana Infantry suffered 314 casualties. 15 officers and 186 died in action, and 113 died of disease. The next episode will cover more Indiana Infantry regiments. Find out more about Indiana's role in the Civil War by purchasing my book. You will find it on the website www.mossyfeetbook.com on the Indiana Short History Series category. There are links to Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Google Play, and other online Booksellers. You may choose to purchase the book in ebook or softbound versions. An audiobook version is also available on Google Play. At the conclusion of this podcast series, I will compile the episodes into an audiobook. The audiobook will be available on Audible, Amazon, Apple, Barnes & Noble, as well as many other audiobook sellers. You can listen to this podcast on many platforms, including Apple, TuneIn, Spotify, Amazon Music, and many others. Video versions are available on YouTube and Rumble. Southeast Indiana residents can also find my books at the Walnut Street Variety Shop at 111 George Street in Batesville, Indiana. You can also order these books direct from me, the author, on the webpage. If you wish me to sign the book, to send an email to mossyfeetbooks mossyfeetbooks@gmail.com requesting a signed book and instruction on how you want me to address it. Note, if you send me an email, I will add you to my contact list. Readers on the list will receive an email from me announcing when I publish a new book. If you do not want me to add you to the list, tell me and I will not add you. Listeners to this podcast that want email notifications of my new releases can just send an email requesting addition to the list. You can choose to have your name removed at any time. If you browse the website, you will find dozens of sample chapters, one for each of my books. I hope you enjoyed this podcast and thank you for listening.